Thanks for coming out today. This is really important. You notice that there are very few cities that I can think of. Can anybody else think of another city is getting together the first day of the new year, and the first thing they're doing is proclaiming that Jesus Christ is Lord, and that Jesus Christ has a place, that God has a place in our society, and God has a place in our government. And I think it's really important that that's the case. It's important that we're doing this because I don't know about you, but I'm sick and tired of so many things. There are wonderful things that are happening in this country, and this is a blessed country, but in a lot of ways, the country is in severe darkness right now. And if we are not willing to engage darkness, the light will never come. Darkness will stay darkness until the light is willing to engage it. And the church is the light. And we need to engage the darkness. We need to engage the darkness of homelessness, of drug addiction, of sexual perversion. We need to engage the darkness of racism and hatred and division. And this country is divided. And we're going to remain divided unless the church gets involved. Only a united church can save a divided nation. The reason we started all this several years ago is because I was in J.C. Penney's with my wife, or there, say hi to Betty, and I was talking to her about the fact that being on the city council at that time, it was before I was mayor, I was excited about all the things that we were getting a chance to engage in, but it was frustrating to me because there were so many problems that it was obvious to me that the city could not engage by ordinance or by throwing money at the problem or organizing. There were problems that were bigger than government. And I realized that these problems only could be solved by the government interacting with God and working together to try to bring an end to some of these major problems. And Betty told me at that point that she felt I should call Michael, we should get all the pastors together, and I did that, and from that meeting we started symbolically, we needed to come here on the first day of the year and acknowledge that God is sovereign and acknowledge that we need his help. And as a result, I've seen El Cajon be a center of light throughout really all of California. And I wanted to continue to grow and be more and more that way. But to do that, we have to continue to pray. We have to continue to acknowledge that God is sovereign. I look at some of the problems that we faced as a nation. We faced horrible racism, slavery, civil rights movement, abortion issues, some of the big problems we've had. And government has always failed to engage those kind of issues properly. It's really the church that has engaged that. It was the church that led the abolitionist movement. Right. It was the church that broke Dred Scott. And if God is able to break things like Dred Scott and Jim Crow laws, can't he deal with the problems we have today? Can't we engage with God as his representatives on earth to bring the people together, to engage our government and say there are certain things in this world that are just evil? And that we as representatives of God on earth, are obligated to fight and engage this evil. Amen. I think that allowing people to remain in drug addiction is a horrible evil. I think allowing people to engage in the hatred of racism is a horrible evil. And so I believe that it's obvious that government can't solve these problems. Now, the problem that we have is most of our governments are unwilling to even acknowledge that God exists. Most political people would not stand up here and talk like this because they'd be afraid of being run out of office. Because if you're in San Diego or San Francisco or Sacramento, you can't speak openly like this. People will be in outrage. They'll run you out of office. So it seems to me that we're due in California for revival. And it's obvious to me that revival is not going to happen in the way that we normally would think it would happen, which is go to Los Angeles or San Francisco or one of the big cities and break out. I think it's going to break out in a small city like this because in a small city like this, people like you are willing to get up on New Year's Day and come out here and worship God and engage with the government. And people like Brian Jones, our state senator, are willing to come out and speak, and he doesn't care that people up in Sacramento are gonna ridicule him for that. And they're going to say that it's somehow evil and wrong for him to invoke the name of God and still be involved in the government. Well, I think that is absolutely wrong. If we want to get involved and deal with problems like homelessness and racism and hatred and division, we have to do it with God being on our side, being part of what we're doing. And God is not going to be part of what we're doing unless we engage him, unless we ask him. He's a gentleman. He's not going to force himself on us. He's going to say, I'll help you, but you got to be willing to come and meet me halfway. You got to become willing to put your hand out and say, God, I want you involved. I want you to be involved in these problems. But the other cities around California are saying, no. First off, there is no God. And second off, even if there was, we're so smart and we're so educated and we're so erudite that we're going to be able to solve these problems ourselves. We don't need any help from anybody. Well, look what's happening. The cities are crumbling. California is crumbling. We have dropped to the last of the nation in almost every aspect of our social life. Our state is failing, and it's because we've rejected God. We need a revival in California, and it's only going to happen if places like El Cajon stand up and say, we'll allow it to happen here.
Yes. Glory.
Hallelujah.
Yes. Lord Jesus.
So that's why we're here today. And I just wanted to thank you for being involved in it. We're going to keep praying for the government. I'd like you to be involved. I'd like you to pray for our city. I'd like you to pray for our homeless folks. I'd like you to pray for our drug addicted folks. I'd like to pray for those people who are trapped in a cycle of poverty. I'd like you to pray for people that are trapped in hatred and division. And pray for the government. Pray for your mayor and for your councilman and for your school board members and for your state senate and for your state assembly members, that they can stand up against the wave of an anti-God hatred that is overcoming the state, and stand up for right and try to bring this nation back and this state back to a sense of balance. And I believe we can start that here in El Cajon. So also I ask you to pray for a revival.